Hello, you. Thank you for being here at the exact moment you needed to hear this most. Not everyone hears the call of the universe, but you do. Not everyone has the courage to step into a prophecy. But you're standing right at the threshold, and I just want to ask you one thing. If there were one truth powerful enough to change your entire life, would you be brave enough to look it in the eye? Because from September 28th to the 30th, the universe won't just knock at your soul's door. It will open a gateway, a portal through which you will no longer be the same, and it all begins with something that may seem so small, a whisper, a calling. There are moments in life when you can't quite explain why your heart feels unsettled. Nothing big has happened. No one said anything unusual. And yet, something in the air pulls your heartbeat out of rhythm. And you know, on a deeper level of awareness, the universe is speaking to you. Not with words, but with frequencies, with sensation, with silent waves echoing through the stillness of night, telling you it's time. Time to return to something ancient and real, something you once knew, once heard, once dreamed of. But somewhere along the way, through the rush of life, the storms, the quiet fatigue, you forgot. From September 28th to 30th, a portal of energy begins to open just for you. Not a gate in the world outside, but an inner doorway, the place where the final prophecy waits to be awakened. This isn't your usual horoscope. This isn't Monday morning astrology. This is a sacred calling from your soul, ringing out like a bell across the desert. Aries, it's time to come home. You may have felt it already, a quiet pull, a soft intuition, a strange dream you can't quite shake. You woke up not remembering the details, but the feeling stayed with you, the feeling that you saw something the outside world has never shown you. Maybe it was a path, a stranger you've never met, or maybe it was a version of you, braver, freer, more true. I believe that no great shift in life is ever meaningless. What feels random is often a secret marker. The pain that lingers wasn't there to break you, but to slow you down and turn your gaze inward. Because if everything stayed comfortable, you would never question the path you're on. If you never felt heartbreak, you'd never discover your capacity to heal. And if nothing ever pushed you to your edge, how would you ever learn that you could fly past it? So the universe sends you steep climbs, difficult people, and endings that never came with warning, not to punish you, but to wake you. Even the strongest soul needs to be reminded why it came here. So in these 3 days, if you feel something stirring inside you, a strange urge to do something differently, even if you don't know what it is yet, if the life around you starts to feel too familiar but no longer true, please know, it is not random. It is the call to return. Your soul is calling you back. Back to the original fire you carried when you first arrived in this world. Back to a courage that doesn't need to be proven or explained. Back to the person you were before fear got in the way. You are a pioneer not because you always know the way, but because you are the one who dares to walk first, even when no one else is walking, even when there are no signs of what's to come. And this is that moment. These 3 days, they are not the end. They are the beginning, the true beginning. A beginning that doesn't come from outside, not from a rescuer, not from a sign in the sky, but from within. From a decision you must make for yourself, that you are ready. Ready not just to change, but to awaken. Ready not just to let go, but to return to the light of who you really are. And when you're ready to listen to that calling, when you stop brushing aside your intuition or trying to explain away what can't be explained, you begin to realize the universe has never been random. From the dreams to the strange conversations, from the synchronicities to the quiet sense that something is waiting ahead, it's all been a whisper, a soft whisper that feels like fog, but is actually the first signal that the prophecy is opening. And if your heart stays open, you'll begin to see the first signs of a shift that no one else can see except you, because only a soul that's ready can recognize the voice of the universe. And that is where our next story begins, where the blurred symbols start to form meaning and truth begins to emerge. From the mist, there are things no one has to say out loud, and yet you still feel them, like when you're talking to a stranger, and suddenly it feels like you've spoken before somewhere, somehow. Or when you're standing in a place you've never been, but your heart reacts, as if your soul remembers the ground beneath your feet. That's not random. That's the language of the soul. It's how the universe knocks softly before it says something louder. In recent days, maybe you've already started to notice the signals. A dream that repeats itself, a glance from someone that stops you cold, A sentence overheard that lands straight in your chest, as if it was meant for you and only you. No one else notices, just you, because it's not a general message. It's a private code written only for your spirit. And if you're hearing this right now, maybe you've already started decoding what once felt invisible. The universe is never silent, but sometimes we're just too busy to hear it, too busy reacting, too busy protecting, too busy chasing what we think matters. Then one day you slow down, just a little, and realize the world has been whispering to you all along, repeating numbers, a strange breeze on an autumn afternoon, a lone bird crossing a crowded city sky. These are the first little cracks on the surface of your old life. They signal that something is shifting inside you before you even know how to name it. I've always believed the biggest awakenings don't begin with lightning strikes. They begin with something quieter, the art of noticing. Only when you pause long enough, only when you listen deep enough, do you begin to realize life was never chaotic. It just had a language of its own. And you, if you're patient, can learn how to understand it. Some people dream of the same door for nights on end. Others have a brief conversation and walk away, no longer the same. Some hear an old song and tears rise out of nowhere. No explanation, just truth. And I know, when these things happen, you're no longer who you were yesterday. These signs don't come to scare you, they come to prepare you. They're like blinking lights in the dark, letting you know something is on its way. Not disaster, but truth, and truth, when it arrives, rarely looks the way you expect. That's why your soul needs to be warmed before it steps into the fire, like hands held close to a flame just before the coldest night. So the universe gets you ready with blurred memories, quiet intuitions, and emotions without names. Because truth, the kind that changes everything, never arrives without a warning. The problem is, sometimes we've silenced the alarm because we thought it was just noise. Let me ask you something honestly. Have you ever had a dream or a déjà vu moment that shook you, even if just for a second? If you have, I invite you to share it in the comments, not just to tell the story, but to remember it, because when you revisit those quiet signals, you'll realize something powerful. Life has always been speaking to you. You just forgot the language. And once you begin to remember, once you look at what seemed small through different eyes, that's when the door begins to open. Not with an explosion, but with a shift so gentle. It feels like sunrise rising without sound. And when that first light slips through the cracks of your mind, you start to see what you once only sensed. You see people around you more clearly. You see what you've been searching for and what's been quietly waiting for you. But most of all, you begin to see yourself. Because what's coming isn't just truth from the outside. It's the truth within, the part you buried beneath time, beneath fear of judgment, beneath the old belief that it's not time yet. But if you're still here, if your heart is still stirring somewhere inside, then maybe, just maybe, that time has finally come. Sometimes, what makes us tremble isn't the light being too bright. It's the fact that we've spent too long living in the dark. And when that light suddenly shines straight into our heart, the place we thought was locked up tight, with layers of logic, calmness, and staying busy, we realize a truth has been waiting there all along. It says nothing. It doesn't push. It just waits silently for us to be brave enough to look at it. This isn't someone else's truth. It's not about a secret being revealed, a lie being exposed, or someone else finally taking off their mask. Even though, yes, those things might happen too, but the real shock is realizing the one who's been pretending the most was you. You said you were fine, when deep down, you were so tired, you just wanted to disappear for a while. You smiled, you nodded, you tried to stay strong, while something inside quietly whispered, I don't want to live like this anymore. And then one day, when the prophecy opens, when the energy of those 3 faded days touches the deeper layers of your soul, you can't fake it anymore. You'll stand in front of the mirror of your soul, and this time you won't be able to look away. You'll see your own eyes. The same eyes you once looked into as a child, when you still believed you could become anything. You'll see the wrinkles, not just on your face, but etched across your heart, the marks left behind, from all the times you abandoned yourself to keep others happy. You'll see the old dream, the one you once held like a treasure but quietly folded away, tucked into a drawer, telling yourself, I don't have time for that anymore. And in that moment, you'll understand the greatest betrayal in your life didn't come from anyone else. It came from the part of you once rejected, the part you called too dreamy, too sensitive, too weird. So you buried it and built a shell around yourself called being an adult. But the truth is, growing up isn't about rejecting who you are. It's about learning to step into the light, even if your hands are shaking, even if your heart still trembles. I once met a woman in her 50s. She told me she had spent 20 years in a marriage that had no love left, but she stayed. For the kids, for duty, because everything passes eventually. Then one night she dreamt she was a bird in a cage, and the door was wide open. No one had locked it. No one was keeping her there. She simply had never flown, and when she woke up, she realized the cage wasn't the marriage. It was the fear of freedom inside her that kept her trapped. The prophecy of September's final 3 days will reveal cages like that. It will shine light on the corners you've avoided looking into. It will expose the relationships you hold on to just because they feel familiar, the jobs you chase only because you're afraid of change, the dreams you dropped because some part of you whispered, "You're not good enough," and once you see all of it, you won't be able to pretend anymore. You won't be able to go back to the things that made you shrink. You won't be able to wear the mask of, "I'm fine." You won't be able to keep compromising with a life that was never really yours. And yes, that can hurt. You might cry. You might feel lost, shaken, like the ground beneath you is falling away, but please don't be afraid. That collapse is not the end. It's an invitation. It means you're ready to rebuild, this time from the truth. So let me ask you something deep and honest. Have you ever realized a truth about yourself so big that you knew you could never go back to who you were? If you have, write it down, not just to share it, but to claim it, to affirm that you've walked through the dark and you're still here, still breathing, still listening, still opening your heart. Because only when we dare to face the part we once buried do we discover how strong we really are. And when you stand firm in that truth, even without knowing what comes next, that's when a new path begins to appear. Not loudly, not clearly, but through quiet doors closing and quiet paths opening for the few brave enough to keep walking without a map. Some doors don't close because we want them to. They close because our soul has outgrown what's inside. A relationship that once felt like home now feels too tight to breathe in. A job that once made us proud now feels like a burden the moment we wake up. A belief that once kept us alive now keeps us from growing. And in these 3 days marked by the universe, you'll begin to see it clearly. Not everything that's gone is a loss. Some things are just making space for what's truly meant to enter. I know letting go is never easy. Whether it's a person, a job, or a piece of your past that once held you together. We don't hold on because it's beautiful. We hold on because it's familiar. We fear walking through a new door because we don't know what's waiting on the other side. But here's a truth I want to whisper gently. False safety is the biggest spiritual prison of all. And the real danger isn't taking the wrong path. It's staying too long on one you already know no longer belongs to you. I once met a man who stayed in the same job for 17 years. He said, "It's not bad, good pay, decent coworkers, everything's fine, except every morning he woke up with the same heavy pull, like being dragged backward into a version of himself he no longer wanted to be. He didn't hate the job, he had simply outgrown it. And what hurt the most wasn't the work, it was the fact that he had ignored the most alive part of himself for so long he couldn't even remember what freedom felt like." From September 28 to 30, you may find yourself at unexpected crossroads. Someone you thought would stay leaves. A door you kept knocking on closes on its own, and an opportunity appears right when you feel you have nothing left to lose. And if you don't understand what's happening, remember this: the universe never takes anything away without preparing to give you something better. You don't have to fear the collapse, because anything that's truly yours cannot be lost, and anything that walks away is simply something you no longer need in order to become who you are. Letting go is not the end, it's a quiet ceremony of growth. You don't need to scream, you don't need anyone to understand, just a whisper in your heart. I am brave enough to close this chapter, because what falls apart in these 3 days is only revealing the true foundation your soul has always stood on. No more shiny paint, no more things you hold on to out of guilt or fear of disappointing someone. Only the truth, the light, the real you, unmasked, unguarded, uncompromised. I don't know which door you're still holding open. Maybe it's a friendship that no longer aligns, a belief that once saved you but now feels like a chain. Maybe it's a comfort zone you've lived in so long, you've forgotten what you used to dream about. If you're ready, Write this in the comments as a promise to yourself. I'm ready to close the old door and step through the new one. You don't need to know what's ahead. You only need to know that what you're leaving behind no longer nourishes you, and when you close something with awareness, you'll hear it, a quiet echo, soft but real, the sound of the prophecy beginning to move. It doesn't ask you to understand everything, just to be honest enough to look back and brave enough to take the next step, because some things in life only begin when we declare ourselves ready, not with words but with action. And when that happens, the signs from the universe will no longer whisper. They'll take form as real invitations, and you, instead of just watching, will be asked to step in. Not everyone who sees the door dares to walk through it. Not everyone who hears the calling chooses to answer. And not everyone who senses change within has the courage to live fully inside that change. Because here's a quiet but powerful truth. Every prophecy, no matter how divine, is only a possibility until you choose to claim it. I still remember someone once asked me, if the universe already planned something for me, why do I still have to try? Why not just wait for it to come? I stayed silent for a while, then gently answered, the universe may send you the boat, but only you can climb in and row. A prophecy is not an automatic miracle. It's an invitation, a hand reaching out from the other side of destiny. But if you don't reach back, that hand slowly disappears. There's a kind of quiet regret many people carry, not from some big failure, but from what could have happened if only they had dared to move, a call they never made, a door they never knocked on, a dream still alive in their heart, but never lived out in the real world. And then time goes on and people forget that even the brightest light still needs someone to flip the switch. I know, sometimes what holds us back isn't laziness, it's the fear of being disappointed if we let ourselves hope again. But here's the truth, you don't need to be sure, you only need to be honest. You don't need to know what's coming next, you just need to know you don't want to keep living the same way. And that honesty, that quiet courage, is the first step in claiming the prophecy. So what does it mean to claim? It means you don't just listen. You name what you feel, you reach out. You write it down, say it out loud, take one small step, even if it's shaky. It's not about waiting until you're certain. It's about turning a moment of soul-stirring into a commitment to live. Just remember, every blessing from the universe is waiting for you to move toward it, but no one can walk that path for you. No one else can say the words, I am ready, on your behalf. No one else can speak the truth for you. I've waited too long already. It's time to step into my real life. You're the only one with the right and the responsibility to bring this prophecy to life. No one else. And when you say, I claim this prophecy, it's no longer just a sentence. It becomes a sacred contract between you and the universe. The moment those words leave your lips, you've touched a different dimension, one that's already prepared, just waiting for you to open the door. So if your heart's beating faster right now, if something inside you feels like it's waking up, I invite you, right here and now, to write this down. I claim this prophecy, not for me, not for anyone else, but for you and the journey that's been waiting for you to say yes. You don't need to know the whole story. You only need to nod to the next chapter. You don't need to become someone else. You just need to be honest with the light that's starting to grow inside you. Because the prophecy doesn't ask, are you ready? It only asks, do you believe you're worthy? And if the answer is yes, if you dare to claim it, you'll see something powerful unfold. This is no longer just your story, it's the beginning of something bigger, a gateway that doesn't just open for you, but for the souls watching you, listening to you, waiting for you to take that first step so they can follow. Not everyone is born carrying the first flame. Not everyone is chosen to walk before the path is clearly marked. But if you're hearing this, if you've stayed with me this far, then maybe, just maybe, you're one of them. The pioneer, the trailblazer, the soul that was planted into this world, not to run from the dark, but to light the path through it. This shift you're going through, it's not just for you. It's a quiet ripple that spreads from you to those around you, even if you never see it. When you dare to live authentically, someone watching you learns how to be brave. When you walk away from something that no longer matches your soul, someone else begins to question what they've been clinging to. And when you choose light over fear, this world becomes a little brighter. I truly believe society doesn't change from grand speeches. It begins with quiet, personal choices. A mother who listens to herself instead of living to please. A father who dares to change careers with zero approval. A friend who finally says, "I'm not okay," for the first time in years. These small acts, they shake the old foundations of the world. You're not living just for yourself. You're living as proof that even in a world soaked in fear, someone still chooses the light. That a soul's fire, even when it burns alone, can still warm the places light hasn't touched. And if today, you choose not to turn back, if you choose to keep going, if you choose to believe you were born for something more, then I believe someone somewhere will choose not to give up. The final prophecy isn't here to magically change your fate. It's here to call you back to your true role, the one who begins before anyone else even dares to start, the one who believes before any proof arrives, the soul who knows that personal courage is the greatest gift we can ever give to the collective. So I want to invite you, gently, sincerely, share in the comments, what truth are you ready to face in this season of your life? Not for approval, not for likes, but to affirm to yourself that you're finally living what your soul feels, and who knows, your words might become the torch that lights someone's night. Thank you for walking this journey with me. Your presence here is living proof that this prophecy is alive, not just in these words, but in your breath, your heartbeat, and the silent decisions you're just about to make. I wish you, for September 28th through the 30th, clarity, courage, and true freedom. May you step into your destiny with a steady heart and peace.